Yo, in this video I'm going to show you how to render an anime character more realistically, and the featured character in this video is Seiko Ayase, or Granny, from the anime Dandadan. So without wasting any time, let's get it. Now, the thing about anime styles is that there's sort of a spectrum of them. You've got the pure 2D styles with a more cel-shaded look, but then you've also got the more realistic iterations like what you might see in a Final Fantasy or a Tekken. And if you're not new here, you may have seen me do that already. No matter where you land on this spectrum, all styles are deviations from reality or distortions of reality. So you will always have an advantage if you first understand reality before trying to reach your ideal style. This way you understand what rules of reality you're breaking in order to reach that style. Now, if this is something you struggle with and you're absolutely serious about reaching your goals, I've got a gift for you below the video. It is an in-depth guide, totally free, that goes into all the skills you need in order to unlock your professional drawing skills. That way you too can draw badass characters. So before you leave the video, make sure you grab your gift, okay? Now, if you're aiming for a more realistic style, an important thing to note is that not everything will translate smoothly from a pure anime style to a more realistic one. I would say that the most notorious example of this is probably Goku's hair. I will never forget back when the first Dragon Ball Z Budokai game came out back on the PS3. You saw Goku's hair in 3D for the first time, and I was like, wow, they got creative to solve this issue. Now, was it a perfect solution? Hell no, but it works. Now, in the case of Granny Seiko here, she too has hair that defies physics, and so when I first decided I was going to do this piece, I was like, how the hell am I going to translate this? It's like the hair travels upward and into itself and creates these sort of bun-looking things, and I don't know how that works, so I decided to take some artistic license here. Which is fine to a degree because the most important thing is the silhouette, and if the silhouette does not feel like Granny, the drawing within it will not feel like Granny. So even if I make some slight adjustments with the details, because her silhouette is so distinct, it's still gonna feel like our girl Granny Seiko, unless I make some crazy changes, right? And that is where some good old reference comes in, because I could not figure out that hair, man. It was just not making sense to me. So I looked up some updos, some towering hairstyles, and I found some workarounds. Now, for the drawing process itself, you may have noticed that I started the shading very early on in the process, and I do that because it helps me save time. The shading also gives me a better sense of the volume early on. Now, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you do it this way. You wouldn't combine your steps the way that I do. Instead, you might do the rough sketch, and then the line work, and then the shading, and then the details, etc. The main reason I'm able to do it this way is because I've spent so much time training to be able to see shadow shapes effectively. And that is something I also dive deep into within the guide below this video. Speaking of this video, if you like what you see so far, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss out on what I've got cooking for you in the future. And if there are anime characters you want to see me draw, you want to give me ideas, feel free to leave that in the comments below as well. But back to what I was saying, being able to shade early on in the process gives me more information to work with, and so I can mold my drawing into something that better approximates what I'm going for. So at that early stage, I'm still technically exploring, and so I'm not fully committed to anything that I laid down yet. I should actually note to you real quick that I have not read the manga for this series at all, and I've only seen the first few episodes of the anime that are out so far. So my understanding of the character is actually quite limited, which can be a challenge if you're trying to create an image of someone that suits them. With that being the case, it's important to do some research on the character that you're trying to draw before you actually get into it. And it's tricky in this case when you're trying to avoid spoilers, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, some of you who are watching this are unfamiliar with the series, and so you're probably wondering, why is he drawing a granny like this, right? Well, one of the gimmicks of her character is that she's supposed to look so young that there is no way people believe that she's a grandmother. In fact, there was a character in the story that said that she is too hot to be a grandma. And her design at times leans into the fan service category, which should not be a surprise to you if you're familiar with anime, right? Now, because this is more realistically styled, I initially toyed around with the idea of possibly making her look just old enough to feasibly be a grandmother, and yet still look young enough to fit within what the creator was going for. Well, I ultimately and quickly decided against it because I felt like it would take away from the whole gag of her looking impossibly young for what she actually is. Plus, at the end of the day, fiction is escapism, and so it does not need to always be bogged down by the limitations and expectations of reality. Now, sadly, a lot of Western creators these days seem to believe that everything needs to fit within their idea of realistic, which often means just make it uglier than it needs to be in order to represent whoever. And it just ends up being incredibly insulting and devoid of any awe. So I'm hoping to see a return to how things used to be, or hopefully something even better. And that, in a nutshell, is why I try to keep things faithful to the source material. But what about the things that I did change? Basically, I tried to limit my changes to things that wouldn't translate too effectively in a more realistic style. For one, there's the way that the hair wraps around itself to tower above her head. But also, I didn't make it tower as high as it does in the source material because I thought it would look a bit goofy in this style. Her eyebrows also look different in the anime. They look like little triangles, and I thought that would look strange as well. So as a compromise, I made her eyebrows thin out very quickly as they approached the outer ends. Now, these changes were not necessary. Of course, there are ways to approach this style while keeping things a lot more faithful, but some of it also comes down to personal preference. Now, the thing you want to realize when it comes to adaptations is that there are many ways to do it right, but there are so many more ways to get it wrong. And so a strategy for success may not be to find the right thing to do, but to just avoid the wrong things. What this means is that any change you make should not take away from the original feel of the character, and ideally should enhance it. Now, before I let you guys enjoy the rest of the video, do not forget to grab that guide below and let me know in the comments what characters you want to see me draw in the future. And of course, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you do not miss a future video. Now, enjoy.